Welcome, everybody, to Nothing Less Than Extraordinary. I am super excited to have Robert Butwin here on my podcast. Thank you for being here today.
You're welcome, and I'm very much looking forward to sharing the different things, whatever we're going to talk about in relationship to how it's going to help your audience.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you so much. And you know what? I'm going to introduce Robert, just a little bio about him. And I can't wait for him to tell the story about how he met his lovely wife, because I actually had to brag it to my boyfriend and go, oh my God, isn't it so beautiful? Their love story. And some of the tips that you actually shared with regards to long-term relationships. So thank you. I can't wait to dive to that. But let's go into diving about Robert, because all this platform is really about highlighting ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. But Robert has been very successful. He's made his million, and he's going to go and talk about that as well. So I'm just so grateful to have a human-to-human connection with him. Robert is a wizard at networking. He's also a strategist for entrepreneur. And his superpower is really connecting people one to the other. So I'm super excited to be connecting with him today. So thank you, Robert. Let's just dive in terms of you talked to me about your family business. So tell me a little bit about how that was like growing up for you, being in a family business, to actually getting into this field of coaching and helping and inspiring and connecting people.
Sure. As far back as I can remember,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I came to the realization is that you needed to figure out ways to make money.
Yeah.
So before I even started thinking about our family business, because I like to spend money, and if you're going to spend money, you better make it. So I remember, I don't remember what age, but I remember having paper routes. I grew up in Minnesota. I remember shoveling sidewalks when it snowed. I remember cutting grass. Early on, I started caddying. So I always focused on what I could do to make money. Now, I came to the realization, or expectation, that someday there was a high probability I'd probably end up running our family business. Being the oldest son, third generation, we started the high school award cheerleading jacket business in the 1930s.
Wow.
Now, besides manufacturing cheerleading jackets and award jackets, we also manufactured police jackets, airline jackets, virtually any kind of jacket one could imagine. We would custom make it for them with a minimum quantity of 4. Quite often we would help whoever we were manufacturing jackets for brand them, not ourselves. Meaning, if they supplied us with labels, we would sew their labels in the jacket. So unfortunately, sometimes life doesn't exactly work out the way you expected it. So I came to the realization that there's too much family in our family business. It was my family, meaning my grandmother, even though my dad ran the business, wanted to make sure that any of her grandchildren that wanted to go into the business could go into the business. And not all my nephews were as ambitious as I was. And she believed that everybody should make approximately the same amount of money. In my mind, there was something wrong with that picture.
I agree with you.
So I had to figure out, what could I do? Because again, I had this expectation of this kind of life I wanted to live, and it takes money. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, if I leave the family business, how could I make the kind of money that I was making? Because I know that, again, it takes money virtually to live.
Yeah.
So what happened was, as I was trying to figure out ways to get out of our family business, I ended up running a nightclub with no prior experience running the nightclub. See, as I was growing up, I always knew that I was going to find my life partner. And sometimes, based on where you think you're going to find your life partner, isn't where you find your life partner. And I'll get into that in a few minutes. So I would go to bars and nightclubs, and I never got into the alcohol, meaning, I would have a social drink, but I never wanted to get drunk. I got drunk early one time. I didn't like the feeling of what it felt like when you were out of control. So, but in the meantime, I would continually go to different bars, nightclubs. And so that's basically how I started running the nightclub, because the person that originally had the nightclub sabotaged his success.
Mm,
And he had to force sell the club to somebody else. And the
mhm,
people that came in and bought the club, because I was a regular customer, I was allowed to, stay there after hours. They had a promotion,
mhm,
and they were bragging about how well they did in the promotion.
mhm,
And I told them it wasn't that great. So I
mhm,
sort of like stuck my foot in my mouth, and ultimately that's how I ended up. They made a bet. I took them up on that challenge. I won the bet. They did a double or nothing bet. I won it again. And again, I could go into what I did, exactly what I did, but ultimately I brought that club back to where it was the number one nightclub. It was called the Oz nightclub,
mhm,
downtown St. Paul. So when we're talking about the wizard of networking,
mhm,
which I'm giving you sort of the backstory
mhm,
of running the Oz nightclub, I always looked at myself as a wizard.
mhm,
So, and so that's part of how the wizard of networking came up, because ultimately where I ended up finding my freedom
mhm,
is as an entrepreneur. I sort of modeled myself after a 70-year friend of my mom,
mhm,
Harvey McKay, who wrote the book Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. Now I'd add to his title
mhm.
is Don't Stop Digging Until You Hit Cold Water, because one person, when you're networking, can change your life. But anyhow, let's go back, because I haven't met you know, as far as telling the story, I haven't met my wife yet.
Mhm.
So anyhow, once the club actually got sold,
Mhm.
and one of the things I came to the realization is I really didn't want to be working for somebody else. The
Mhm.
people that bought the club had their own way of what they thought
Yeah.
they needed to run the club. Well, within 5 years, that club was out of business approximately, but that's another story. But
Mhm.
when I realized I had to leave the club,
Yeah.
I started to wonder who would ever need to or want to put an ad in the personals. Now,
Mhm.
this was before online dating was around.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I put an ad coming out of Minnesota. I lived in, I put an ad in the Twin Cities Readers,
Mhm.
and spelling wasn't necessarily my long shot in relationship to my ability to spell. In the like 4 or 5 line ad, there was like 3 or 4 errors.
Mhm. Mhm.
Lady that answered the ad, if she would have seen any one of those errors,
Mhm.
would have never answered the ad. Somehow fate was with me that day,
Okay.
because she overlooked all the errors, and she normally never responded to an ad in the Twin City Reader. It just
Mhm.
so happened she was meeting a girlfriend there for lunch. The
Mhm.
girlfriend was running late. She was wondering what to do with her time. She picked up the reader, went
Mhm.
into the personals. There was my ad.
Mhm.
So anyhow, when she responded to the ad, and back at that point, you got letters from the different people that responded to your ad.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, there was like, I don't know, 30 some people that responded. I called them, uh, set a first time, a time to have a date with them.
Yeah.
So we had a date at lunch, and within the first 45 minutes
Mhm.
of that date, she came to the realization she
Mhm.
was never going to see me again.
Mhm.
Now, what happened at the 45-minute mark
Mhm.
is what they called flashed her.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't know what I was doing. I was unconscious incompetent. But
Mhm.
what flashing means, and she had just taken a body language class.
Mhm.
Flashing means if you raise your eyebrows, it's a universal sign that
Mhm.
says you like the other person.
Mhm.
So at that point, she thought she'd give me, or she figured she'd give me a second chance. And we
Mhm.
started to have deeper kinds of conversation. By the end of the date, we ended up setting a time for a second date. And from that time on, we ended up became into an exclusive relationship. 2 years later, we
Mhm.
ended up setting a date to get married and got married. So we've been happily married, still are happily married for 36 plus years.
Woohoo!
Exactly. And a lot of my success
Mhm.
from a variety of different perspectives is because of our relationship.
Mhm.
We've got that kind of a really quality relationship.
Mhm.
And part of the key things, and again, a relationship is your ability to relate
Mhm,
to the other person. I mean, the word relationship is relate.
mhm.
And, you know, again, um, a lot of my success is because of our relationship. Let's put it that way.
That's a beautiful way to actually segue into this because you know relationship in the book of Napoleon Hill too, the relationship is a powerhouse in order to elevate you to the next level. And they talk about sexuality in that too, like the duel between men and women in there. um but you know you could be a very powerful person and be able to successfully do it on your own, but there's nothing more fun and more stimulating to be able to have that with a partner that can really take you to the next level, challenge you, and really get you outside of the comfort zone, and then sharing that success with that person. So I'm so happy to be able to hear that, and because you put in a lot of work and to be able to yeah, because relationships are not easy. But to be able to relate to the other person, it's really definitely key is learning to listen to that person and seeking to understand them where they're coming from, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the key things that you said is challenge. It was like she realized that communication wasn't necessarily my strong suit back then.
Mm-hmm.
She forced me to go to suggested that I go to, Toastmasters. The other part of it is she helped balance me.
Mm-hmm.
She had this intuitiveness that wasn't necessarily my strong suit. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a balance between her energy and my energy, and like the synergy
Yes.
of us, the two of us working together was greater than either one of our individual efforts. And so the
Mm-hmm.
word I came to learn is synergy. And it's like where 1+1, you know, contrary to what we learned in mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't equal two. It
Mm-hmm.
equals a number that's much greater than two. So yes, and she also inspired me
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that she was always there for me. She always had my back. And
Mm-hmm.
part of the way that she inspired me is I know, even though she never said it and doesn't ever say it, but I knew that I was committed to make sure that I could help provide for her the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to have her live.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is so crucial because to be able to have that level of trust, knowing that she'll always be there for you and vice versa, and you being able to provide for her in the comfort that she needs. And the other beautiful thing of what I love about your story is that she finally loves being able to go on this date with you, where you were not being kind of constantly um call out for Robert this, Robert that. I think you took her to Hawaii on a trip, and finally it was just the two of you guys where she was able to have your undivided attention without being bothered by everybody else around you, right?
Yeah, that's part of our dating process that I didn't go, talk about. But I met her shortly after I got done running the nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I was running the nightclub, I knew a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Before I met her, I dated a lot of people. So it's like I had some kind of idea of what I was really looking for, but it wasn't actually Hawaii, it was Cancun, Mexico.
Ah, okay.
And whenever we would go out on dates, wherever we went, coming out of Minnesota, I would run across somebody
Mm-hmm.
that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
So our first trip together back into Cancun, we went to a little Mayan place called Chichen Itza.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so as we get there, it's like a 60-mile ride approximately outside of where Cancun is.
Mm-hmm.
And we get there and she says, finally, I've got you in a place that nobody is going to know who you are. Because
Mm-hmm.
she was starting to wonder, who is this guy? Every place we go.
Yeah.
Within 5 minutes of her saying that to me, somebody yelled out my name. It was a person I
Ah,
played basketball with.
ah.
So that's created a whole nother level of questions. But in the meantime, you know, through the dating process,
Mm-hmm.
we came to the realization that we were life partners and have been life partners ever since.
It's so beautiful. And I love these love stories. So yours is a one that's very inspiring and very touching. I can't wait to meet Bonnie, one day. Because and tell me about like when you were actually in this, because I don't know if she does the business with you or you guys kind of collaborate. So why you're in this whole process of trying to figure out how do I generate the amount of money of the lifestyle that I want to live, and then to go to working in the bar, and then after that, how did you continue morphing and growing your business into being in the line of work that you're doing now?
Well, first of all, when we started off in the business,
Mhm.
and I, when I actually came to the realization of what I wanted to create, which was I got involved in direct marketing, network marketing, MLM.
Mhm.
I wasn't an overnight success. I sort of like coming from where the background I came from,
Mhm.
which was of and again, this is all relative as what you compare it to, but a
Mhm.
fairly affluent family.
Mhm.
So if you want to say there's a right side, wrong side of the tracks, and I don't look at it that way,
Mhm.
I came from, so to speak, the right side of the tracks in my
Mhm.
mind at that point.
Mhm.
And I created a fair amount of debt because part of my background is I've got to look, I'm somewhat compulsive.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when I see something that I really wanted, I sort of like dove in hook, line, and sinker. So, and in starting my business, I created a fair amount of debt.
Mhm.
And so part of how that played into everything that was going on is she wanted to understand where I was financially.
Mhm. Mhm.
So she took over my books. And ultimately,
Mhm.
at the time she took over the books, I had $102,000 in debt, 41 different debts, because you know, I saw this of what I wanted. And, I had good credit at the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Well, that means I could borrow money. I had no problem in those areas. So she took all over the book. So ultimately, a lot of the things that she ended up doing was things I didn't want to do. So I could stay in my state of genius. I developed the skills of networking. I
Mhm.
developed the skills of marketing.
Yeah.
She handled the finances. Did she like to do that? No. But
Mhm.
she realizes it was a necessity. So
Mhm.
she still does the finances today.
Mhm.
Now we share some of the different household kind of chores that we do together.
Mhm.
Because again, you've got to split things, but um, one of the key things as it related to myself, I wanted her to do the things that she wanted to do
Mhm.
so I could do the things I wanted to do. And so that way we came together. So, anyhow, back to my story.
Mhm.
One of the things I learned from my story,
Mhm.
because obviously I created all this debt,
Yeah.
that things that happen along the way, they're different experiences. And I love the definition of experience.
Mhm.
Experience is what you get when you
Mhm.
don't get what you want. The point is, how does that serve you? A
Mhm.
lot of people will take a look at the experience, for example, that I had and say, this doesn't work.
Mhm.
It's time to give up.
Mhm.
I take a look at the fact that, okay, if I were going to start a franchise,
Mhm.
how much would it have cost me back in the early 80s when I got involved in this business?
Mhm.
If it was a McDonald's franchise at that point in time, I think it was like 750,000. So I learned the value of reframing. I
Mhm.
also came to the realization, because quite often along my pathway, I was going to come across, or I found out that I came across people that were having financial struggles.
Mhm.
So, based on what I went through, I could look people in the eyes, speak from the heart,
Mhm.
empathize with them, and
Mhm.
be more effective as helping give them solutions and alternatives
Mhm.
based on what I went through.
Mhm.
So it's not just listening to what other people said. I had that experience and I could be more authentic to
Mhm.
people. So anyhow, back to what I was saying, everything serves you in relationship to the things that you're going to go through in the journey. I think it was Ben Sweetland said, success is the journey, not the destination.
Mhm.
Sure, you want to know the destination of where you're going,
Yeah.
but it's enjoying the journey as you're getting to the destination.
Mhm. Mhm. It's a very, very good point because I talked about it with my boyfriend just the other day. I'm like, I'm working, I'm grinding on my business, I'm doing so much. I'm waking up at 5 in the morning, running my business because, like you, I am very compulsive as well. And when I get something that really piques my curiosity, I just dive into it. So it takes and I always think life does reward the brave. So if I'm going to be committed and serious about my dreams and passion, then I got to put in the time, the work, to research, to learn, to connect like you did, networking and learning marketing and all of that. And then at one point I was becoming stressed because I was like doing all of this work and asking myself, am I going to be successful in this thing? And then just feeling overwhelmed and feeling discouraged. And then at one point we were talking about it where his brother, for 4 years, he worked like nights and day, like a lot of hours to collect enough money to do his dream, which was to go and do it was not windsurfing with his like I forgot what the title is. It's because I have the word in French. But anyway, so he wanted to go on a trip in Brazil, buy all of his equipment. It cost him about 65K for all of the equipment for 4 years. And he went to do his trip. He went there for about a month and a half. But coming back from that, it's something that he's always wanted to do. It was so liberating. The experience was beyond what you can actually put in terms of money, in terms of the value. And that made me realize that, like you've mentioned, life is really about the journey. It's not so much about the outcome. We oftentimes tend to focus so much on the outcome and then stressing ourselves about it. Am I going to get there? But then we forget that the beautiful journey of all, it's the fun part. So, and that really allows me to ground myself. Yes, I'm going to still be waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning, doing the work that I need to do before the kids and everybody else wakes up, and then putting in the hour in the evening. And every time, like this morning, I woke up, it was like 7 in the morning. It's on a Saturday. I should be sleeping in, cuddling with my boyfriend. But I woke up and then and it's a commitment that I have to stick to. And he's like, stay a little bit longer. We were hugging and cuddling, stay a little bit longer. And so I gave him 2 minutes, 2 minutes of my time. I'm like, I'm making a commitment to something. So I'm very disciplined. So I got out of bed and I went to do what I needed to do. So when you're really, really committed to whatever your passion is, enjoy the process of the journey. Forget about the outcome. If it's meant to be, it will be. But in the process, when you're thriving and doing the things that you love, I think you'll tend to attract the success in your life. Would you agree?
You said so many different
Mm-hmm.
key things in relationship to what you just said. So let me comment about some of them.
Awesome.
Commitment without a question is very important.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, quite often we've got things backward.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, what you want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a thing, it's be, do, have. If you're being the person
Mm-hmm.
doing the things necessary, you'll end up having what you want. So it's not, yes, you want to look at what you want to have, but then
Mm-hmm.
you've got to start going back to being the right person. So one of the key things that was one of those defining moments that
Mm-hmm.
happened
Mm-hmm.
is, and a lot of it's having faith and focus and fun.
Yeah.
The 3 F's: faith, focus, and fun. So
Yeah.
I had faith that I would get where I wanted to go, but I had a defining moment.
Mm-hmm.
I came across a cassette tape series. For those of you that might be old enough to remember what a cassette tape cassette was, came across a cassette tape series by Wayne Dyer
Mm-hmm.
called No Limit Person.
Mm-hmm.
See, when I came to the realization that the limits that existed in my life,
Mm-hmm.
I was responsible for them being there.
Mm-hmm.
Once you take responsibility for what is, you can take it to the next level, what will be.
Yeah.
But fortunately, most people settle and they're in a state of denial.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the acronym denial, which is don't even notice I am lying. They're lying to themselves by not taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I came across a new way to learn. See,
Mm-hmm.
when I was growing up, part of the expectations was I needed to get a good education.
Yeah.
Well, I had education shoved down my throat. It was
Mhm.
expected I get educated and I got the degree,
Yeah.
but I really didn't get the education at that point in time.
Mhm.
And when I came across Wayne Dyer's cassette tape series, I came across a different way of learning, because when I was working in a family business, I was driving from sporting goods store to sporting goods store, account to account that I was calling on. So I turned my car into a university. So I changed my mindset.
Mm, mhm.
So I started realizing and again, it gets back to being, I had to figure out how I could shift my consciousness.
Mhm.
You know, the Wayne Dyer cassette tape series was the first thing. Then I came across Jim Rohn cassette
Mhm.
tape series which was Take Charge of Your Life.
Yeah.
And there's many different things that I learned from listening to Jim Rohn. If you haven't listened to him, highly recommend it. You can go to YouTube and get it for free. You know,
Mhm.
but he was Tony Robbins' mentor, and he talks about, he said, reason, was it about getting certain results in a reasonable period of time, and he
Mhm.
related it, then he follows it up with the question,
Mhm.
how long do you want your son or daughter in first grade? He
Mhm.
said 1 year is enough. That's why they make the desks so small.
Mhm.
So, again, it's everything as an entrepreneur, it's about getting results. But
Mhm.
part of it, and one of the things that you said, was stress.
Yeah.
Because I knew that when I left the family business, because I was the one that was always focused on change.
Mhm.
How can
Mhm.
we make the changes necessary? Because if you're not getting stronger, your competitors are.
Yeah.
So you've got to, adapt to the changes. The one key element I think about back when I started,
Mhm.
all the changes that have happened. There was no Google, there was no YouTube. I mean, a distant cousin of mine created a song
Mhm.
60 years ago. And the name of the song was The Answer, My Friend, is Blowing in the Wind. Now, that was 60 years ago. Now
Mhm.
it's gone from the wind to the cloud. And if
Mhm.
you want to access it, all
Mhm.
you have to do is ask Siri, Google, or Alexa. What is your answers? But the point is, and the reason I say that is because things that I spent a lot of money on,
Mhm.
going to the seminars, listening to the cassettes,
Mhm.
the books, you can virtually get it all for free today if you know
Mhm.
where to plug in. So
Mhm.
back to stress.
Yeah.
I was really worried about what would happen
Mhm.
if, if things didn't work out. So I came across a book by Dale Carnegie. And the
Mhm.
title of the book was How to Stop Worrying
Mhm.
and Start Living. And again, that was another key thing, because I came to the realization, for things to change, I had to change who I was. And I had to start being more so
Yeah.
that I could do more, so I could have the things that I really wanted to have in my life.
Mhm. That is beautiful. The suggestion for that. I took your advice. The No Limit, How to Be a No Limit Person by Wayne Dyer, Wayne W. Dyer. So good. I read that before, and it was one of my friend that's was into multi-level networking. She had suggested to me, and then you spoke to me about it, and he is so good. I love this author. And he also does meditation as well, like the teaching with regards to really centering yourself and connecting to the universe and to the higher power. So good, so inspirational. He's left this earth, but for him, his belief is that we're all energy. So death is not an ever ending. He still exists. And then I actually took your advice as well with regards to Jim Roth. And I listened to the whole entire thing. So good. They're both so powerful, these two. They're so funny how they teach their stuff. I mean, I wish I could have that humor ability. But talking about stress, Dale Carnegie, I did see that. And I'm going to definitely be reading that book of How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. But thank you for sharing that. So what did you took out of the Dale Carnegie book that allows you to apply it in your life to stop stressing? Because that is going to be very good for people, because a lot of people seems to stress about just about anything.
One of the key things that I remember is it said something about if things don't work out, what is the worst that can happen?
Right.
Then ask yourself, can you live with that?
Mhm.
And then you back it up, and then you take a look at just the progression. But
Mhm.
again, I started to realize worrying isn't helping me.
Mhm.
You want to stay focused on the income producing activities, the activities that you need to do that will lead you to where you want to go.
Mhm.
So my focus was making a difference.
Mhm.
One of the things, and I don't want this to get all about network marketing or MLM, because,
Mhm.
um, one of the key aspects about that kind of business, and I love that kind of business, and
Mhm.
quite often
Mhm.
you're dealing with other people's perception,
Yeah.
and based on technology, social media, that whole business has changed.
Yeah.
But the key in that business, it's all based on a geometric progression. Numbers always work, people don't. But in that kind of business, you've got a vested interest
Mhm.
to help other people succeed.
Yeah.
So it's how you attract people, how you help them gain the proper insight, the proper perspective in
Mhm.
relationship to what it is that you do. Because in that kind of business, and again, no matter what kind of business somebody is in,
Mhm.
the two things that we really do, the, the two things we do is we educate
Mhm.
and influence.
Yeah.
See, I believe if people really understood network marketing, MLM, everybody would be involved in it.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to be involved in it though,
Yeah.
because they think it's about selling products.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
Mhm.
Obviously, the products have got to be of value.
Mhm.
People have got to understand the value, but based on the tax benefits, based on the fact of what quite often the different products and different network marketing companies do,
Mhm.
because usually they've got life-changing products. Usually they're a little bit different than quite often the products that you might find at Costco or Whole
Mhm.
Foods, one
Mhm.
way or the other. But again, the tax benefits,
Mhm.
I take a look at some of the things that I've learned
Mhm.
because of MLM, part of it and part of what inspired me.
Mhm.
So I remember watching 60 Minutes back 40, 50 years ago, a long time ago. And a guy got on from a food company and he
Mhm.
said, my job is to make the foods addictive. Then I
Mhm.
started thinking about it because I look at what's happening in the world.
Mhm.
Part of my uniqueness is taking the complexity of what's happening and simplifying it.
Yeah.
And I take a look at a lot of how the media controls how the people think.
Mhm.
I used to remember saying the opium for the masses is the medium or something along those lines.
Okay.
We're getting brainwashed by
Mm.
all this misinformation. So I think about how people get addicted to foods.
Mhm.
And a lot of it starts off from the advertisement we watch on TV to
Yeah.
the peer pressure that we go through as we're growing up. You want to be vegan? Well, I mean, you don't eat meat, whatever the case is. Not that I'm trying to,
Yeah.
talk about that, but I mean, you get into doing things because of peer pressure.
Mhm.
So a lot of how you can grow, have a better chance of aging more gracefully is
Mhm.
becoming more conscious and aware of the negative things you're putting in your mind and body
Mhm.
and do less of them.
Mhm.
You've got to simplify the process so
Yeah.
that so anyhow, it's about educating people and
Mhm.
influencing people. As far as influence,
Mhm.
one of the books or cassette tapes, and you can go to YouTube and get it for free.
Mhm.
Robert Cialdini, he wrote two books,
Mhm.
and one of them was influence, and the other is pre-persuasion. And you understand, and part of part of why he wrote those books is because, and then I want to talk a little bit about
Mhm.
why he wrote those books. He wondered how certain people got so good
Yeah.
extracting money right out of his wallet without him even realizing how they did it. And
Mhm.
so he started studying the people that were really good at influence.
Mhm.
He sort of boiled it down to the 6 key elements of
Mhm.
how to be more effective without being manipulative,
Mhm.
about influencing people.
Mhm.
So, and then I talk about why. That was why he did it. But, again, then you've got Simon Sinek, who
Yeah.
talks about why
Yeah.
people do, and again, if you understand why it is, and it's got to be something greater than money.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you might want a lifestyle, but I mean, it's like now that I'm, you know, I've been an entrepreneur for a long period of time. I look at why I do what I'm doing, and
Hmm.
it's not about money anymore. It's about living a life of meaning based on being able to make a positive difference in other people.
Yeah.
It's not about me, it's about we. It's about how you can be, how you can know that ultimately whenever your time comes
Hmm.
at the end of your life and you reflect back, that
Hmm.
you know that you did, the best that you could do in relationship to the things that you did.
It summarized it very well because I thank you for sharing all of that. I wanted to before I forget. So it's called Influence and Persuasion,
Pre-persuasion. It's
pre-persuasion.
what you do before. And again, he's only written 2 books, and
Hmm.
it's Robert Cialdini. And all you
Okay.
have to do is, go to YouTube, put down the book Influence, and you'll be able to find it.
That's excellent. I definitely will be reading that. And because to link back to what you said, at some level, when you actually attain the monetary aspect, it becomes bigger than just that level of like the money aspect of it. I read many different books, so it's and you are a perfect exemplifier of that. Like your car became your schooling and you started listening to tape and empowering yourself. That's exactly what you need to do. You need to bathe into that. I always say make sure you soak yourself in the soil that will nourish you with the right kind of nutrient and that you would need. So that's exactly what you did in learning from other people. And then with regards to what you said for this particular one, I think like when people are actually trying to do these type of work, especially for entrepreneur, I mean MLM, the networking can be whatever you want to make out of it. I mean, it has such a bad rap on that. And I had just another podcast before we were talking about because she was in the MLM. Is it MLN? Is it MLN, multi-level networking, right?
No, multi-level marketing, but
Marketing.
I've got a
Sorry,
different.
MLM.
I've got a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It's making life meaningful.
Mhm.
MLM,
Yeah.
or making lots of money, or making love more. Any way you want to look at it.
They go line in line if you they do whatever one you choose. But it's so good because you reframed it and it's really not about the money in the end once you achieve it, because a lot of successful people in the books that I read, it's no longer about the money, it's the chase of seeing if they can actually accomplish or complete the mission to challenge themselves. And I remember reading the book of 50 Cents, and I think his book was called something Hustle. I was, before that I wasn't a fan of 50 Cents or anything, but something about his book, I think it was just the title Hustle that really caught my attention, because I was starting out as a new entrepreneur feeling like I was hustling on the side. And so I was curious of what his book meant by hustling, so I bought it, and it's a really great book. And that's what he mentioned, is that he was making all of this money, but towards the end of his book it was like, how do I give back? How do my life serve as a meaning towards other people? Because he had so much money that it no longer was an issue about that finance. So how do you give back? And that's exactly what you're trying to do, Robert, and inspire and give back to the community. I want to be able to mention and touch base on something really quickly as well. As you were going through the process and then you're working on cultivating yourself and embodying that person that you want to become and be, how did you move and transition? Like, what were some of the learning curve that you had to look back and you were struggling with that could be inspirational to us as new entrepreneur when we hit the rough patches? Do we I love your 3 F's about what you had mentioned with regards to what was the first one here? Faith, definitely big time. You got to have faith. And then the focus, I mean, to be driven and to do it. And the good thing that you're a little bit impulsive in that means you're gonna dive in down deep to that. And then having fun in the process. When you're having fun, enjoying doing what you love, then you're gonna radiate that and attract that in your life. But when you hit the bump road, what can you actually tell us and help us so that we can overcome that?
Well, it goes back to what I sort of alluded to
Mhm.
in my story. Everything that you experience is
Yes.
going to serve you. And it's part of looking at that, even with the fact, how I had to shift my consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, another book I'll recommend is by Dr. Robert Anthony. And again, you can get it on YouTube, Beyond Positive Thinking. But I would
Mhm.
go to the different seminars, and let me talk to you about a couple of them. I became very good friends with Jeffrey Combs. I helped coach and work with Jerry Clark, but Jeffrey Combs would do these intensive kind of seminars, not the walking on fire, but he would have you break an arrow right at the V in your neck. He would have you bend a metal rebar board with another human being where you put it right in your neck and you'd walk together. These are the stuff that
Mhm.
it would bend.
Mhm.
So it's coming to the realization that you can do the things that you really set your mind to. But I was at a seminar, and a guy had a glass of Coca-Cola and a pitcher of water.
Mhm.
And this is part of how I look at everything, because it gets to a certain point where you just embody it. It just becomes who you are. You become one one with what you can do. But he would take the glass pitcher of water and start pouring it in the glass of Coca-Cola, which is dark in color. And the
Mhm.
more and more that you pour the water
Mhm.
into the glass of Coca-Cola, it starts displacing
Mhm.
the water that's there, where it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter.
Mhm.
And I started to realize that was the same thing with my mind, but it's a combination of, a balance between growing as a human being and doing, because it's like you can only learn so much from
Mhm.
reading the books and listening to cassette tapes about how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Because until you experience balance
Yeah.
on riding a bike, you don't know how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
So again, I focused on being there, of helping other people. I talked about the three F's, the faith, focus, and fun. Let me give you three A's, which
Mhm.
is attraction, how you attract the things that you want into your life, going
Mhm.
back to the law of attraction,
Mhm.
the associations that you do, the people that are on, so to speak, at the core of you, who you are.
Mhm.
And then the other A is your appreciation. So
Mhm.
if you're doing the right things, the right activities to attract the right people,
Mhm.
and you are associating with the people that are really going somewhere in life, then they're not the kind of people that are just settling.
Yeah.
You want to be associated with the people that have a vision and that are doing things. And then it's appreciation of people,
Mhm.
because again, people can pick up your sincerity.
Right.
Are you a sincere individual?
Mhm.
Uh, and so, we started off talking about your commitment,
Yeah.
um, because a lot of it is, I gave you three F's, three A's.
Yep.
I'll give you three C's. Actually, I'll
Mhm.
give you a couple more than three C's,
Mhm.
because one of them is your commitment to yourself.
Yeah.
But before you have commitment, you need to have clarity. You
Yeah.
need to be clear in relationship to where you want to end up.
Mhm.
And then the other two C's are choices,
Mhm.
because we're going to make different choices along the way.
Mhm.
And you've got to, as you make the choices, the ones that don't work out, it's like, what did I learn? And the
Mhm.
ones that do work out, they validate the process.
Mhm.
But the other C that you want to be thinking about, the fourth C, is certainty.
Mhm.
You want to know without any doubt
Mhm.
that you're going to, with certainty, end up where you want to end up. And you're going to go through a process.
Mhm.
Here's one of the key things that I've learned. Doesn't matter where you start in life or where you are now.
Mhm.
The key is the direction you're headed and where you choose to end up. Choices. Life is choices and how we program ourselves. One of
Yeah.
the movies I love is A Knight's Tale. And
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, with a father told, and this was back when you had to, to be a knight, you had to be born into that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so his dad said, you can change your stars.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
as people come to the realization, it doesn't matter where you start in life, or
Mhm.
even where you are now.
Mhm.
Again, it's where you choose to end up.
I love it. Oh my God. I'm gonna have to rewatch The Knight's Tale from a different perspective now because I love watching The Knight's Tale, but now I'm gonna have to look at it at a different angle. And that's a powerful one. So thank you for all these beautiful 3A's, 3C, 3F. I mean, you're so good in coming up with good acronyms. I actually, when I was doing my webinar launch, thinking about you and getting inspiration about coming up with my own acronym. It's not as good as yours just yet, but it's headed in the right direction. So I love this. Clarity, 3C, clarity, choices, and the last one is certainty. So love that. And so when you were actually going through the process, because if I'm thinking about, how you were doing your business and you wanted to succeed and you were like in a debt of over 100 and something K, and wow, kudos to your wife. She had your back and she said, we can make this work because a lot of people would have run the other way and she stuck around. So really, you guys are a good compatible life partner. So how did you did you have the certainty that you would be able to overcome that debt? Because I would imagine for most people, they'd be overwhelmed and paralyzed.
The answer is yes. And let me bring you back in time. We were still dating at the time. She had taken over my
Yes.
books. Thank goodness she liked me, because we'd been dating. But we were walking outside of, she lived across from a park reserve,
Mm-hmm.
and I was holding her hand, and I turned to her and I said, there's nothing or nobody that's going to stop me from being successful.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that declaration to her, and she realized that probably meant her also. So at that point, she figured she better stand with me,
Mm-hmm.
and she did. And again, the rest is history.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That commitment, that belief, and it's so good that you mentioned that because I think back of my childhood when you have this unwavering, undying faith that you're going to be able to succeed. I remember about to sign up for going to a high school, and just really briefly, and my dad wanted to sign me up to a completely different school because he thought the school that I was going to had a really bad reputation. There was a lot of dropout, and there was gang in there too. And I said to my dad, because as a kid, I was still is, very determined person. But I think I wish I could tap more into the power of my younger self, because when she commits to something, there's no stopping that little girl. So I got to tap back into that power. But I remember saying to my dad, Dad, I'm going to the school, and I don't care if the school has a bad reputation, whether there's a lot of dropout, where there's a gang, because the only person that's really going to change my life, it's what I decide from this. So outside influence does not have an effect on how my grade and how I'm going to form and the type of person that I'm going to turn out to be. And you know what? Because my dad, when I commit to something, he knows I'm serious about it. So he never even bothered as much as he did the convincing. I just looked at him and I said, this is not happening. I'm signing. I'm going up to that school. So I finished with good grades, and nothing came out of that. Like I had a really good childhood. So when you do commit to something and when you feel like you're going to succeed and nobody's going to stop you. And I think that is also, Dr. Frankl for the book Man in Search of Meaning. That's what he says, is that once you know your why, then no matter what the how is, you can overcome it, because you know that no matter what, you're going to succeed and nobody's going to stop you. So yes.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, the other thing that comes into my mind, and
Yes.
I can't remember the lady that sang the song, but it goes something like this: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes. Absolutely. Kelly Clarkson. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very, very true. If it doesn't kill you, it would only make you strong. It's really all in terms of your head, like how you want to decide. Again, choice, right? I want to be able to highlight you as well, Robert. I want to know what you're working on, something that you want to share with the public so that they can actually get involved and get to know you. Thank you for this beautiful session of powerful nuggets of gold in here. There's so much in here. But what are some of the things that you're working on right now that you want to be able to have us get involved in, and so that for my audience as well to benefit?
Sure. You know, one of the parables that I came across early on, and I think you're familiar with it, the starfish thrower.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's the guy that, you know, throws the next starfish in as a boy, just as a Mister, you're never going to make a difference. Well, I made a difference to that one. So my focus is figuring out what I can do to help entrepreneurs, you know, specifically coaches, authors, speakers, and holistic minded entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
help them take what they're doing to the next level based on collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best way for somebody to reach me is just go to my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Just let them know that they met me or came across me because of they heard me on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My calendar is calendly.com/my last name, but win.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I tell everybody, my name's Robert Butwin, and just remember, with Robert, you do nothing but win. That's one T, BUTWIN.
Oh my God. And when I say that you're so good with acronym, that's such a good way to put that. With Robert, you do nothing but win. I love it. It's fabulous. And definitely go check out Robert, book in his calendar. It's really simple. You go to that link. I did the same thing and book a few, an appointment with him, and really just connect and get to know each other.
Right. But just make sure that they let me know, because normally I charge a lot of money, but because they came from being on your show, I'm happy to do it at no cost.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Robert. I'm going to leave you with the last word, because I always like to have my guests come on the show and really just share one last inspiration, a quote or something that really resonates and speaks to your heart that can really help empower others who may be going through a hard time.
Sure. You know, even after I've been successful, different things have happened.
Yes.
And, you know, without dwelling on the negative.
Yeah.
But, you know, people, it's like the quote is, when I come across somebody that does something that's out of character, I tell people a person's character is like a tea bag. You never know what's inside of it until it gets in the hot water. So people reveal in relationship how they handle different situations. And again, you can't let that stop you, because you are going to come across certain people that are going to take a shot at you. It's happened to me. But if you're have clarity, you're committed, and you take a look at the choices that you made and what you learned from when that happens, with the certainty that you know you're going to arrive. One of the key things my first mentor said, you have to have the attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for where you are as you're going to where you deserve to be. You know, so again, it's the journey that you're going to go through with certainty that you will arrive.
Perfect. That's a beautiful way to ending that. I couldn't thank you enough for that, Robert, for taking the time to be with me, to pass on all of these life lessons that has been learned through so many years, and you put it in a beautiful gist for us to be able to shortcut this whole thing. And I think that the last thing that I want to mention with what you had mentioned here is that life comes in so many different forms. While you're trying to chase after your dream, people are going to hit you from every angle and try to persuade you and tell you that, you know, the path that you're on is the wrong path. But if you have an undying faith, knowing that you're going to succeed and arrive, and you feel like that is your life mission and you're on the right path, keep focused, keep going. Because I too worry about like what I do. Like, is some people, whether when I'm in the process of finish writing my book, and worrying about when I put my message out there, who's going to judge me for what I'm sharing and being vulnerable. But I can't think that way, because the people that is really part of my audience, you can't please everybody. So might as well please the one that really can resonate with you, and keep your mission at it, because you're going to get so many punches from all over the place. But if you stay focused and believe in your dream, you will succeed. So thank you for that powerful message. Are you still there, Robert?
I'm here. Yeah, no, I didn't know what kind of an ending you wanted or whatever. So it's all good. I just letting it naturally end.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, about the tea and kind of putting in hot water. So show what your true color is once you're put in that hot water. You'd be surprised of how much strength that you have. So Robert, I want to take this moment and just say a huge thank you to you for being an inspiration. I hope to see more collaboration between us. I can't wait to see you in so many different form, and what you're going to be touching in terms of turning into gold again with all of this. Thank you for making a difference in the life of us entrepreneur, and for your precious time to be here with us.
Sounds good. Glad to be of service and value, and whatever I can do to help, just let me know.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.